Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It's day 4 of EMEA Contenders Trials Mocks. It's been a really long week, but just as much as every day before. It's a gorgeous day to support Tier 2, isn't it?
It's sunny outside. In Scotland, that's a rarity. I don't know about you, I don't know the weather over in Florida, but we don't tend to see a lot of sun. And so I know that's going to be a good sign for these guys. A lot of good Overwatch going to be coming down.
Yeah, and I mean, both of these teams are ready to show us some good Overwatch. You want to tell us a little bit about the stakes of this match?
Yeah, so it's going to be Young and Beautiful currently up against HSL Esports, and unfortunately, there aren't really a lot of stakes at the moment. HSL have not been able to move on through and will not be locking up a spot in Contenders. But if you're Young and Beautiful, you're already in that top seed right now in your group, and so you are looking to extend your lead just a little bit further to really give you the best chance of getting on in.
Yeah, if they end up taking this one, I think that should almost, if not guarantee them the spot, and not to mention the fact that they're already on a really hot streak. However, HSL, there's a little bit of pride in this one. You know, you take down the top seed, you may not leave with a contender spot, but you're sure going to be leaving with the chip on your shoulder.
I mean, you'll be going down as the one team that was able to actually defeat Young and Beautiful, because they're not just on a hot streak, though. They're completely undefeated. These guys have gone for 3 matches and have won every single one of them. So HSL, it's going to be a real tough challenge, but I'm sure more than enough of these guys are ready and raring to go.
Yeah, it hasn't exactly been close for Young and Beautiful. They've come through and outclassed every opponent in front of them, and I think a lot of that comes down to the incredible roster that they've put together. I think their tank line, though, is the real core of it. Dons and Brewston have such a good idea of how to play Orisa and Sigma in this meta. They're not playing Sigma like it used to be played, going on some crazy off angles, looking and getting extremely greedy. No, they have this hardcore bunker tank composition that knows when they can and when they can't take space, and it opens up the field for the rest of their team to do so much.
I mean, you have to say it, the roster is stacked. They have so many good players. We've got World Cup players. We've got a kid who's been in Contenders for 4 times now. They have so much power in their roster and so much flexibility as well, because they are just powerful across all of the board. Sometimes when we see strong teams, they're very strong on that front line and only that front line. And as soon as that front line gets pressured, the entire rest of the team just crumbles and goes away with it. But not Young and Beautiful. You have to win that frontline matchup. You have to win that DPS matchup. You have to win the support matchup, because if you leave any of those still alive, they're just going to come back and beat you off point.
I mean, that's what I love about this meta, though. There's so much stress on every single role. Everything from Immortality Field to Swiss Strike cooldown to Dynamite cooldown to Halt cooldown, everything matters. So having a fully stacked roster like Young and Beautiful do is exactly what you want. HSL, though, they're nothing to scoff at themselves. Coming in, ADM, Vendetta, Sir Gibson, Kage, Barrett, and Snappy. I think Snappy and Barrett's support line is actually pretty strong here and could give them a leg up in the matchup.
It's all about basically keeping your cooldowns and keeping your backline safe enough that they don't have to use those cooldowns. And we know HSL do have a very strong backline, right? Their Batiste play is very good. They tend to have Immortality Field for when the moment calls for it, rather than it being burned out in those early engagements. And that's something that you are going to have to carry into this next match, into this first map, because we're going to be headed off to Busan. And there's going to be a lot of ability management in Busan, because it's a control point door, and once you lose that first point, not only are you losing percentage, you're running behind in the ultimate economy. And no matter what meta we're in, no matter what heroes are going to be picked out of those spawn doors, ultimates are always the be-all and end-all of every single part of Overwatch.
Yeah, and as much as ultimate economy is important, it's especially so on control points. I think the meta composition right now has completely changed the way that you need to play certain maps, because you'll do things like run out of time on escort maps or on a control point map. It gets so much harder to actually flip the ultimate economy in your favor. And so let's kind of start going through Busan here, because every single control point here is going to be offering us completely different playstyle from the teams.
Yeah, so you've got Mecha Base, and Mecha Base is always going to go for that extremely fast pace that we see where teams just try. They either go for the fast pace, they either try and take up that point as quickly as possible and hold it choke, or we have the ring around a Rosie. And you go for that double shield, and everyone just goes from one end of the high ground to the other end of the high ground, waiting for either an amplification matrix to come up first, or an Ashe to be able to get that first opening pick and then surge forward. And then on the other side of things, you've got Sanctuary. And Sanctuary is a weird one, so because Sanctuary is just so strangely set out. It rewards flankers, it doesn't really reward the entire team sticking together, so you've got to set up that crossfire. But what it means is if you send people away, if you split your team, you're making yourself vulnerable. So you have to immediately be finding value, otherwise the team that you're trying to farm is just going to turn around and make a harvest of your composition.
Yeah, there's so many places on Busan where these teams are going to be fighting for one particular area. Sanctuary is one of the big ones. The mini pack on the right side becomes so critical. You see the entire map take place just in that area. Same goes for Mecha Base on the bridge above the far side of the point. Oftentimes you'll see entire fights, entire maps be played out in that one area. And so these teams, they know where they need to take, and it turns into this big game of chicken of how many people do you want to commit to that flank? Like you mentioned, you need to do it to find value. You need to do it to find a way to get a pick and end those fights, because otherwise they're just going to continue to go on. But you send one too many players over there, and then all of a sudden the core of your composition is just going to fall apart.
And we see a lot of teams as well, very strong on certain maps of Busan. If you're very good at Mecha Base, sometimes there is that risk that downtown slips out of your fingers, because downtown is not played like Mecha Base, nor is it played like Sanctuary. You have to have control of high ground. You have to be able to set up either a spam composition with an Ashe, or even sometimes the Widowmaker that we still get to see, perched up in that high ground, looking for picks, looking to pressure out that front line, or you just go for that bunker up right above the point. You've got your Orisa, you've got the Sigma, you keep the Batiste close to your chest, close to that shield bash, close to all of the CC that prevents them from going down in those fights.
Yeah, all of these maps are going to be giving us really interesting looks from each of these teams. Do you think we're going to see any dive out of either of these? It's something that's kind of been sprinkled in a little bit here and there, right over top, but it's something that you have to execute so perfectly to actually find any success with it up against the double shield that a lot of teams have shied away.
Well, dive is just that feast of famine, isn't it? It either goes extremely successfully and you manage to get that first opening pick, you manage to coordinate 6 players to jump on that Batiste all at once, Immortality Field can't even come out and he's just gone, then you move on to the next and the next and the next and slowly pick apart the composition. Or, and this is the danger at the moment for a lot of teams, dive takes so long to set up. And it takes so long, and you're waiting and waiting for the right moment to initiate because you don't really have sort of the confidence when you've got that Batiste, when you've got that break. You don't have the face damage that you're taking, like we saw in old dive, where Winston's would just peek out, allow the health bars to drop so low to get that Ana closer to the Nano to then initiate the dive with that ultimate. Rather now, you've got to go in completely ultimate-less. And you've got to find that first opening pick. Otherwise, all of that initiation, that massive big old spark, it just sputters straight on out, and all of the time that you've spent, gone. All of your health bars have just been converted into ult charge, and you yourself have absolutely nothing to show for it when you come around for that next fight.
Yeah, now I want to ask your opinion on a specific dive pick here. It's something that we've seen a lot of. It has been the Sombra. Some teams have played it, some teams have shied away from it. Some want to rely on the EMP, some would rather try and build up something like a Dragon Blade. What do you like seeing there? Do you enjoy the Sombra? Is there anything you'd rather see in that position?
I do personally like to see the Sombra because I always feel like she is one of those really hard counters. But that's a personal bias to her. Sometimes, unfortunately, there's just a better option. And at the moment, there's a lot of better options. Because you can run the Sombra and you will have to build up the EMP, but you have to be able to hit that EMP. And right now, when you run the Sombra into that double shield composition, you can't find value because you go for that hack and you immediately get stunned out of it by so much CC. You try and go for the Batiste, you try and burn him low, but the entire team is there and you can't even go for that separation sort of play because he's not going to be walking. He's not going to go for that 1 versus 1. He's going to have 5 other people defending him, and you've just got a dinky little nail gun hoping that you're able to take his head away so you can go for something a little bit differently, right? I would honestly sometimes rather see a Reaper coming out where you've got a little bit more sustainability, you've got a little bit more on the pressure side of things, and you can go after the Batiste, you can go after the front line with far less punishment. When if you get caught out by that CC, you've still got that Ray Form, you've still got that teleportability, whereas if the Sombra gets caught out and you don't have Translocator up, you're dead.
We've seen many a Sombra die before they get to even use their Translocator, so we'll see if that even matters here and whether or not any of these teams want to run dive. HSL is locked in, a composition that does not look complete, so let's talk about what Young and Beautiful are running. It seems to be pretty standard outside of that Lucio.
Pretty standard, but you are going to have that Lucio. So this I feel is just going to be that initial speed boost out of the gates, and then you're going to swap Luct onto the Brigitte for the shield bash to counter this dive. And honestly, what HSL are showing right now, they can come out of the gates with. You're going to have Vendetta pumping out so much damage on that Zarya, keeping the backline safe, but even better, you're going to have that bubble for ADM every single time that Winston jumps in. He's got just a little bit more of those seconds to survive the CC that's going to be coming his way.
Yeah, but HSL, they're on a timer. You need to end this fight quickly, or else you're just going to get ground out by Young and Beautiful. Young and Beautiful, though, they're on a timer, and it's at the top of your screen. The control point will unlock, and they're going to need to move here in a moment. If they can't take down the Winston just like that, they're in a bit of trouble, but they're going to be more than comfortable now without a main tank. It's just a Zarya in their way. Young and Beautiful going to be finding their way to the point.
Oh, HSL, because they're running that Zarya, they just don't have the Diva there to protect ADM, so you will have the bubble, but it is only momentary, and you can't really send anyone beside the Winston, the Genji, and the Tracer to go after the front line of Young and Beautiful, or even the back line as well. So HSL are going to be having a real tough time. You can already see Vendetta was hardly able to do anything in that fight, hasn't even managed to breach 20% of that ultimate economy. Now Young and Beautiful in charge of this fight, allowing your kids to get so much damage and already so close to that blade.
Yeah, the Dragon Blade, we often see it come up first in recent times, but finding value with it when it comes up first is actually relatively tricky because it can be stopped by cooldowns if it's just dry. So you kids looking to use this, it's very critical though how much value he gets out of it. And ADM's going to dive in before he manages to get it up. There's a good chance for HSL to find a kill early, and they will. Barretts goes down. Now you have nothing to keep away that dive the next time it comes in. Sir Gibson goes by the wayside as well though, and that is not the pick you want to see.
Young and Beautiful going to be keeping a hold of your kid's blade. And this is something you can use to really threaten HSL, because they don't have anything outside of that sweep dot to deal with it. And Vendetta going down is even worse for HSL. They're going to be staggered out. More time going for Young and Beautiful, more point percentage climbing, and more ultimates coming online for this team. HSL, they've got the nano boost, but Sir Gibson just has not got the blade to see it through.
I mean, it's just insult energy at this point. Kage chucked the pulse bomb straight into the welcoming arms of Brucin as well. Now the dive comes through, but it's not nearly as potent as it would be. Your kid still has the threat of this blade with the bongo being thrown out. He feels like he doesn't even have to use it because they've already found that main tank.
Oh, HSL. They nano boosted ADM, and he had to pop Primal as soon as the dive comes through just to survive. Two ultimates completely gone from the banks of HSL, completely gone from this next fight, as Young and Beautiful are just waiting. Your kid's still holding onto this blade. Brucin with the Sigma Flex. These are the two ultimates that can shut this next fight down, though, because HSL, they're not running the Batiste. They're not going to have the Immortality Field. When the gravity hits, it's going to hit hard.
This is a scary proposition for your HSL. We said the dive was feast or famine, and I think we know exactly which one it is right now. Here comes your kid, straight for your Ana, slashing and dashing his way on through, finds himself one, looking for his second, and the kills are coming through for Young and Beautiful, just like we thought they would. The Gravitic Flux, the Blade are just too much to handle at this point. HSL, you've got a Roadhog on the board for Pete's sake. They don't think they can take this one, and they absolutely won't. Young and Beautiful lock it up 100-0.
HSL really, really, really needed that Batiste. More than the Batiste, really needed that Immortality Field, because it is just that leg, right? You don't have to worry about building up to a Silent Barrier, building up to a Transcendence. You've got Immortality on a 25-second cooldown, and you can even use it in dive. You can throw that Frisbee in, allows Vendetta, allows ADM just a little bit more mobility, a little bit more confidence when they go for that initial dive. They'll be able to stick around longer, get more cleave damage. We only got to see one Primal coming out from that Winston the entire round. We only got to see one ultimate, really, coming out from HSL's, each of their players. Only able to get one ultimate the entire time around. But this time, it's not going to be the dive. So this time, from HSL, they're going to that double shielding. They're trying to go for this poke damage with Kage on this Ash, but you are going to have to live up to Yona, who's going to be looking to take your head off, all while Dance distracts with this Hammond and sows the seeds of Discord all the way through your composition.
So Young and Beautiful are now the ones swapping things up, but like you said, that Ham's going to be causing a lot of problems. Yona makes those sightlines incredibly hard to avoid, and we have seen Yona's Widowmaker. This can do some serious damage if you let it. The key word being let it, though. I love this approach from HSL. Put yourself into that lower room. You can set up the bunker very appropriately, take away the Widow. Silence ADM, though. He's going way too far forward. Gets his head taken off by Jonah and Khan. Oh, he's giving him the schmovement as well. The Widowmaker is going to get away with their life, and now HSL have to cower back in this room.
They're just stuck inside room. They have to watch as Young and Beautiful manage to pick up that point first, and the second HSL try and escape, there's going to be Yona lining this side up for their heads.
Yeah, this is a very, Very scary sideline across, but ADM has to regroup with the team, but they're losing players one by one. They're just being bled out like some sadistic, ritualistic sacrifice. Moxie, it's just not working for him.
Khan is doing so much on this. It's Yona who's reigning supreme right now. Kage is taken up, attention completely drawn away from the other DPS because you're dealing with Dance, you're dealing with the front line of Young and Beautiful getting up in your face.
There's a stigma back there.
Right, Vendetta! HSL, they're forced to put Sir Gibson onto the Torbjorn, Kage onto the McCree just to keep Dance away from their faces.
That fight was abysmal. That was like watching quick play. There were 2 people in spawn, 1 person on point, 2 people underground. There's a Sigma behind Young and Beautiful for whatever reason. Finally, though, HSL, they've regrouped. They have a team composition that makes sense, but it cost them their entire ultimate bank. Now Young and Beautiful, they can come in with the mines, with the sights, with the pulse bomb, and look to do a ton of damage. Vendetta, though, starts off right, takes down Dons, but you can't trace it out with a 2.5-man pulse bomb. The turret goes with it, and now ADM will fall afterwards. Khan's Discord is just allowing way too much damage to come through.
It's the decoy play. Young and Beautiful, they're sending Dance and they're sending your kids in, and they know one or the other is going to find value because you're busy dealing with the Hammond, you're not looking at the Tracer, you're able to get that double pulse bomb kill, and now you can send your kids in, you're not looking at the Hammond, you can put mines all over the point and delay HSL. They will be coming in for Amplification Matrix, and that should be enough to back Young and Beautiful off this high ground and allow this double bunker to set up.
It's going to buy you a couple seconds, but it's not going to save you from this gravitic flux. Yona uncharacteristically missing a shot there, though. With the Sigma ult now out of the way, you can use that Ant Matrix, like you said, start taking space with the double shield. Young and Beautiful don't have the same amount of sustain, but what they do have are these mines. Dance puts them in a very, very uncomfortable position. But HSL, they're already set up on the high ground. Now they can transition to the point, and they're grinding out this fight. They finally have the position. They finally are where they need to be with all 6 members to actually take a fight, Moxie.
Your kids is going to find it so hard as well to get back onto this point because now you've got that Torbjorn set up. Now you can go for the Tracer deterrent and you can already see he's looking for it. Your kids are so achingly close to that pulse bomb, and we know what happened with that last pulse bomb. Though you do not want to burn an immortality field because 2 members got stuck when Young and Beautiful are going to be coming into this next fight with the rally, with all of the aggression in the world enabled on their side.
Yeah, Vendetta has a good opportunity, though, to counter that rally with a perfectly timed gravitic flux. Looks like they want to get aggressive, though, and the rally's immediately canceled. Lux goes down, and so the team will fall with them. A great fight there by HSL.
And a great fight set up for HSL as well, because now they've got the ultimates, but all the while, Young and Beautiful, they actually got the flip going on through, and HSL have to divert resources. Young and Beautiful not able to take advantage of that moment, though they don't have that Lucio, no speed boost, but they are going to be coming in with the Sigma Flex, with this Pulse Bomb, and those 2 could be devastating. You can have one force out that Immortality Field, put Snappy into that 25-second cooldown, then have the other one come in and pick up all the kills you need.
Well, HSL, again, looking to be very proactive here, looking to end the fight early, but they have the ultimate advantage. They should be confident in that, but no! Immortality Field, be damned, your kids finds a way. In he goes, but up goes the ball. Don's dropped down incredibly low, but this Tracer, he doesn't stop on the pulse pistols. 1, 2, 3, 4 to his name, and a first map on the board for Young and Beautiful.
And Young and Beautiful knew exactly what they needed to do. As soon as that break goes away, all of them focus on the McCree. So those 2 players are out. Do you know what those 2 players provide? A rain check for your kids. The Tracer suddenly gets absolutely unleashed on that point. The McCree's gone, the flashbang, the shield bash gone alongside both the backline and your DPS, and suddenly your kids gets to play. Every single Tracer always wants to be in that moment, though, where there's no CC to stop you, it's overtime, and you're forced onto that point, forced to eat all the damage off those pulse pistols.
Yeah, he's having a great time and a great game so far from Young and Beautiful. They've played the ultimate economy great. They've shown us numerous compositions. Now, how many of those are they running based on HSL's compositions? I don't think it's that many. I think Young and Beautiful were trying to come out of the gate there in the second map and just catch them off guard, and they did exactly that.
I love as well the teamwork that is going into these compositions because there's real thought, right? When you have that Hammond, it's not just to sow the seeds of discourse through the other side. It's so you can pile drive. And when you pile drive a team, suddenly they're lifted above that Orisa shield. Suddenly they're lifted above that Sigma shield. And so the Widowmaker that was initially just shooting into those shields, sat up on that high ground, gets a free shooting gallery for a couple of seconds. And we know that Yona can hit their shots. We've seen it in action, and we got to see it in action again today.
Well, now map 2, we're heading to Route 66. The storyline's going to change a little bit here. The doors open a bit more for HSL to run that dive that we saw them at least attempt running on downtown. I'm going to say, though, it wasn't pretty.
And on Route 66, the dive has to be stellar. Because you need to take control of high ground as quickly as possible. Because the team in control of that high ground pretty much dictates the entire tempo of how the fight goes. To the point now that we are actually seeing teams, I think it was yesterday, a team came in and played a Reaper to bait everyone off the high grounds, meaning that the Genji could go through and pick up all the value. So there's a lot of thought going into all of these ways that you can push that double shielding away from the high ground, because you look at what double shielding comes alongside it, right? You've got that Ashe. Ashe does spam damage. Ashe has dynamite. Ashe has some really powerful firepower with that Viper at her side, where you can get two-tapped if you're a squishy. And that's dangerous. That means that you're risking losing your backline as soon as that fight starts if you go just a little bit out of position. And when you're running dive, when you're right in the middle of the dive fight, where both of your tanks, the off tank and the main tank, the D.Va and the Winston, are secluded behind that Orisa, behind that Sigma, what does that deprive your backline of? Heal.
Yeah, you lose a lot of big tools, but these escort maps have been extremely rough for a number of teams. I think, Mox, you and I have only seen one map you completed all week. Most teams are getting stopped incredibly early because so many of these fights take forever to actually go down. I think a lot of teams need to realize the opportunities that they have, especially when the defenders are moving, because the defenders have to rotate relatively often. They start off on the high ground. They need to eventually go down to stop that cart from pushing. But if they don't move properly as a group, then there's the openings for the dive, like you're talking about, leaving those supports open, catching them out in their rotation. That's the kind of looks that we need to see from these teams, and that's the kind of advantages that they have to take if they want to take this map.
I mean, you also have to remember as well that the defenders, their respawn is so much further away than the attackers. So sometimes it's worth actually going in with a sort of sacrificial lamb play, where you do just enough, you trade it off, you manage to get that one pick, but the defenders, they tend to immediately cower back as soon as they lose a person. They either cower back or they go so aggressively that they have to put in so many ultimates that you can then come into this next fight knowing that you've got a slight advantage above their heads, if momentarily, but one that you can absolutely push all the way.
Well, just like every other Mogs, ultimate advantage, I think, is the number one thing that you said there, right? Every single map in this meta just matters so much, whether or not you have the advantage as far as ultimates go. And Young and Beautiful, they have their own ideas of how they want to do this. Starting off on the relatively standard composition, Kage, though, is looking to give us a Widowmaker, which, you know, Yona has proven his mettle on. Now you've got to match him, though.
Well, you will be attacking, though, from that spawn point, so you can go for the play of Kage looks for that early pick. If you can get that early pick, that is going to be the instant knee-jerk reaction that we talked about. Young and Beautiful will either have to go forward so aggressively that they can then be punished, or they have to move back to give up that space, allowing HSL to get this payload properly moving through. Because you can see Kage's looking for it. He's behind the Orisa shield. But he's not going to spot a Widowmaker out, and he will be sticking with it. Going to be trying to chance that, but that is going to be extremely risky because your kid is going to be looking for that Widow all the way back around that backline.
I mean, this is a ballsy play going for the Widowmaker, but I don't mind it at all from HSL. You've clearly been struggling with everything else. Give yourself some pick potential is not the worst way to go about winning this map, but losing Vendetta, I'll say the opposite about that one.
The Widow comes with a condition. You're not doing as much damage as Yona. You're not constantly pumping it out. It's one good headshot. That's all you need. And it can be extremely hard to set that up, especially if you can't really go for this high ground. You can't freely shoot because you're only going to be finding double shields. You have to take the off angles, but the off angles are going to make you so vulnerable to that Genji attack.
Not to mention the fact that HSL have to make space, but every time they do, Young and Beautiful just push right back into him. Vendetta goes down, traded for your kids, but the tank going down is going to be much more important. Now the Immortality Field is used early by HSL. Young and Beautiful still have so many resources to end this fight, and they're going to do exactly that.
Young and Beautiful getting to hold on. Your kids slowly but surely creeping up to that blade. But if you're HSL, you can come into this next fight with that amplification matrix, buy yourself a little bit of space to get onto this cart, to try and force Young and Beautiful away from holding at the corner.
Young and Beautiful, they're not giving up this corner easily, I'll tell you that much. Even through the Ant Matrix, they're going to hold their ground. Both Immortality Fields used. Brucein looks for Gravitic Flux, but doesn't find anything because everything's already dead, Mox.
But that's something, right, for HSL. You managed to burn out 2 ultimates, whereas you yourself, you used your amplification matrix. Kage's going to be off the Widowmaker onto the Asher. A little bit more damage, but Young and Beautiful. They're pressing forward so aggressively. No, they drop the super shield. Just they think they can hold HSL and spawn.
Did somebody say selfless, Mox? Because I heard somebody say selfless, and they may be punished for it. Looks like HSL are coming through with the couple, but that spawn advantage should be enough to get him back into it, but they're bleeding out players. No, you kids on his own is looking to clutch this one out.
Just holding them. One by one, you cannot pass the buffed up Genji and Young and Beautiful. They went so aggressive and they don't get punished for it in the slightest. HSL going to be coming in with a rally. That's a lot of aggression that Young and Beautiful can't really answer back with because you're so much in that hold. You've only got an amplification matrix and a bob to fall back onto, and you can already see they know this, they're respecting this, they're giving up the space.
You wanted aggression, here's aggression. They've swapped onto a Reinhardt. Dans is in, and he is in the thick of it. However, the Gravitic Flux just shuts him down. That hammer's not touching anything when you're stuck in the sky. HSL will be punishing even further for their sins. You did not want to be going to the spawn.
Young and Beautiful, they invested the bob as well. Dans is sticking on this Reinhardt, so it wasn't that initial try and get back to your team faster with that charge mechanic, right? But now it means if you're HSL, your backline suddenly becomes a lot more vulnerable. Because that Reinhardt, if you're not supporting the backline, he's just going to walk past the Iris Shield, walk past the Sigma, and go straight for your Batiste and burn out the Immortality Field, allowing you kids to come in with a blade.
Well, it's a matter of actually getting there. You take so long to approach this composition. The Reinhardt doesn't exactly have the health pool to move in when so much damage is being thrown at him. Not to mention an application matrix from Snappy gonna really complicate things, but they know the Immortality Field's been forced out. You kids can now come in and farm for free with this blade. Only gets one onto Vendetta, but that could be enough to crack open this fight for Young and Beautiful. They have the follow, but so is Sir Gibson finding himself 2 with 1 button press, cleans up a 3rd, and that's gonna be enough to get HSL across the line.
HSL are going to stop a Reinhardt in of their own. Because they know Dans was doing so much with that hammer in that last fight that he pulled up the shadow, and now it's the mind games. Vendetta was off the Sigma, gave up the ult charge, went for the Reinhardt, thought that you'd have to hold the shield up in this next fight to block Dan's the shadow, and now he's forced back onto the Sigma, meaning that HSL, they've been pressing forward without one of their shields, meaning they can't take up the high ground where Kage really wants to be sitting right now.
Kage's attempting to take the space up here, but HSL just don't have all that much to work with. Young and Beautiful have set themselves up nicely for this push. They have the double shield, they have all the sustain, and Snappy, I'm sorry, you do not look long for life right now. You look like Tracer food, and Yona's hungry. Cannot finish off the kill, but Bruce is going to come along and do exactly that. Clean up one more for Young and Beautiful.
HSL, they're in danger right now. They're behind in ultimate economy, and they don't have anything beside Barrett's to deal with Yona and to deal with your kids. You need to put some extra form of CC, either the McCree or the Torbjorn, to try and punish Young and Beautiful for putting in an amplification matrix. This team, they are getting so aggressive, and HSL just do not have the tools to capitalize on it.
It doesn't matter how safe you feel. You could be at home in your bed sleeping. Young and Beautiful, they're coming for you. They don't give a damn where you think you are or how safe you think you are. Brucein, though, separated from the team in a pretty good position to take out this Bongo, which is going to be a nice reduction of damage. Nice Etho on Yona's Pulse Bomb. Puts things in a little bit of a weird position for Young and Beautiful. They've used a lot of tools to back their way on up, and now Kage can start going off on this Ashe, start hunting down this Tracer as the rest of the tanks fall for YAB.
But HSL, they have to initiate this next fight. Because Dans is so close to that supercharger, and your kids has already got the blade up, and that is going to be bang for your buck if you're able to pull those 2 off. That is pretty much an instant fight win, because Barretts is not going to have that rally to try and cushion HSL's health bars when it comes on through. So you've got the blade, you've got the bob, you have to initiate with one of these 2 ultimates when Young and Beautiful try to come out of the tunnel to buy yourself the time to build up to Vendetta Sigma Flux, so you've got just a little bit of counterplay around that blade.
You know, I definitely think they can use the bob to attempt to peel for the blade. It's a little bit of a conservative use, and one that isn't perfect, but it's definitely one that you can look for, especially if it's something like a Bongo blade. Going early with the bomb, though, like you mentioned, as well as Sir Gibson's blade, they're going to press that button before your kids even gets the chance to.
And Young and Beautiful, your kids may not have been able to press the button, but Dans did. The supercharges is gone. Your kids' blade will be completely bone dry. In HSL, they're going to have that Sigma Flux to act as an umbrella when it comes towards them, because now you're on the home stretch. Now you have to keep this momentum going, because if you lose a single one of these fights, Young and Beautiful will have the high ground, will have the ultimate economy, the picks, everything they need to poke you down in this war of attrition.
Oh boy, the Grid Flux again is not going to give him the chance. Slams down half of Young and Beautiful onto the ground. However, the ADM going down. The blade's still up for you kids, but like you mentioned, it's got much to go with it.
Oh, HSL. The Sigma Flux was just a little bit too early. They weren't able to burn Khan's immortality field out, and so now your kids get to completely uncontested put this blade in with this next fight. And if you're Young and Beautiful, you don't even need to invest the Sigma Flux, right? You know it's going to find value, it's going to get you a pick, and all you need to do is keep getting these picks, keep taking that high ground back.
Oh, here comes your kid. He doesn't have much of anything to support himself, but he's finding plenty of value regardless. The blade completely naked, but it's found itself a nice set of two. Khan goes down, but HSL, they're still in this fight. ADM's still up and still taking space.
Snappy was absolutely huge, just jumps onto the roof. Amplification Matrix is in front of himself and keeps healing the Orisa all the way through. So HSL, they're able to keep ADM up, they're able to keep this payload constantly moving. You've got the supercharges, you've got the blade, you've got all of the ultimates in your favor. If you're Young and Beautiful, you've got to come in with a huge rally and get a kill immediately. Otherwise, you might have just lost Route 66.
15 seconds on the clock. You're absolutely right, Max. They want to finish this map. It's now or never. Dash over. Sir Gibson's looking to end it early. Catch himself one. This guy cannot not get value out of his blades. However, with an immortality field in this way, it'll be just that, only one. The rest of his team pumping out damage to try and end it. A huge halt on the 4 as well. So many players from Young and Beautiful pulled straight into the blender. And with that, HSL are going to look to put a stop to this.
In overtime, but they will be able to full push for Route 66, and that, when we were talking about how often we see that payload stopped before it even goes into point C, is absolutely huge in itself. They did such a good job of being able to just come in, keep everyone healed, keep everyone still with those ultimates. So in that last fight, in that overtime, you could just pour everything, including the kitchen sink in, and there was nothing that Young and Beautiful had to fall back onto because they've been so aggressive with the blade, with the Sigma Flux, both of those invested in the same fight. And then you stuck around just a little bit too long. It started going lopsided. You lost members. You'd already used your ultimates. You had no space, no ground left to stand on. Suddenly, HSL are able to get that full push.
And that's a completely different push from HSL from anything we've seen before. We mentioned that we've barely seen people even complete payload maps, and HSL come and just blast down the doors of Young and Beautiful. Now, Young and Beautiful, they've got to destroy that moniker as well. They need to finish this map, and they need to do it in a pretty timely manner, right? Even with 0 seconds on the clock, beating this map, beating Route 66 in this meta is nothing to scoff at.
It's so hard because these fights, they go on for so long, and they can be clutched out by so many things. Because you've got those supercharges, you've got the Genji, the amount of damage that a Genji does on his own, even without that ultimate, it boggles the mind, duh. He can just pretty much insta-kill any sort of squishy if he sets his mind to it. And Young and Beautiful, they know that they need to do this quickly. They're going to have Dollar go for that initial speed boost just so that they can try and touch this car.
It's not a bad move for them. I'm curious. No, they don't stay on. They're just going to go for the cart touch, try and blitz down these trains, make sure no one's doing anything too cheesy. It's going to be a while before we see a proper fight. HSL are going to try and hold this high ground for as long as they can and then back off on the corner. But with Sir Gibson going down, they're going to have to wait even longer for that one.
You're going to have to just rely on spam damage at the moment. Kage has to come in absolutely huge and trade out a kill in this next couple of seconds. Otherwise, HSL will have to give up ground, will have to give up this fight.
They've already chopped off the high ground. Kage's in a world of hurt right now from Jonah's Viper rifle. It's just getting worse and worse. With one player goes the entire castle in this meta, and HSL are going to crumble.
The Gibson was going very aggressive, was trying to get that blade online. But he goes down, and that means he's behind an ultimate charge. Your kids is already 70% to this blade, and HSL will have nothing apart from that immortality field to try to burn it away with it. It's Young and Beautiful. It seems as if at the moment this payload is completely uncontested.
It could reach the end of the point, but Vendetta's going to go up for contest. Already used his kinetic grasp. That means the immortality field's next. HSL have used so many resources just getting in here now. Without that, there's nothing in the way of your kid and his blade finding so much, slashing through everybody, and there's plenty of cleanup damage from the side of Young and Beautiful.
I mean, you say that HSL used so much just to approach that payload, but they used so much to stick on that payload as well. Snappy puts in that amplification matrix, and now you don't have stopping power. You've got the blade, and it's going to have to be huge, and you have to pull it out before Young and Beautiful are able to properly set this up, because they are going to have the Sigma Flux, they're going to have the Bob, and that's the peel that you talked about, where you can just put a Bob in when that Genji is blading, and it means that all of the focus the Genji has that should be on his team, on getting his kills coming through, is forced to focus on saving his own skin.
Young and Beautiful, they're going to take that great push and they're going to turn it into something greater. This ultimate advantage, this is something that we've seen them roll into future points. This is what's gotten them this far. This is what's turned them into such a monster of a team. They've just got to stop this blade from Sir Gibson. It has continuously found value, but putting in so much just to stop him. And that was a lot of ultimates from HSL with all that much value being found.
HSL, they were able to get that blade going on through, but it's not the blade that's picking up the kills right now. It's just the chip damage that you're able to take, because Sir Gibson, still alive, was able to just keep on all the way through the ultimate, still in his skin. As Young and Beautiful, they're still around this payload. They're still waiting for that bright moment of ignition when your kids is going to hit this blade, and it's going to be soon.
This is an ugly fight, Monks. Both teams are completely separated, but Young and Beautiful, they've gotten back together just enough that when the spawns come in, they're going to put themselves at an advantage. Great gravitic flux, though, from Vendetta. Lays down the law of the physics on them, and by no means are Young and Beautiful going to get another chance at that one.
Sigma Flux is great, but Snappy coming in with that amplification matrix was the cherry on top of the corpse pile. Because the Sigma Flux, it lifts everyone up, it puts them below that 50% HP when they hit the ground. Snappy just amplification matrixes and gets to shoot straight up, and he has nothing contesting him, and Batiste does so much damage on his own. He's practically a third DPS. If you're Young and Beautiful, though, you've been holding onto this blade, and it's going to be big. Because you know HSL, they don't have anything besides from this rally to really try and cut through it. Can't get so close to that Bob hate. Young and Beautiful have to go in fast, and Snappy going down. This should be the ignition the attackers need.
ADM's fallen off the high ground as well, trying to regroup with the rest of their team, but they need to be very careful. Accretion misses onto your kids, who now has free reign, takes down Sir Gibson, who is using a blade of their own. We know exactly who the better Shimada is right now, but HSL have come in and cleaned up the backline because you're trying to come through such a small choke.
Young and Beautiful, they wait just a little bit too long. Kage's able to come into that Bob, and it's able to go on to that small choke. But Young and Beautiful, they still haven't given this up, though. They're still trying to poke damage, and HSL are forced off the low ground onto the high ground, trying to just keep possession of this one, because they can't give it up to Bruce, and he'll get so much spam damage. He'll be able to set Jonah up for some really nice shots as well. Kage has to be constantly winning in this Ash duel. The second you lose one of your members of your team, your entire composition feels such a huge absence.
Not to mention the fact that Brucein has that gravitic flux and is just waiting for the right opportunity to use it. The rally's going to be used first, though, from Dala. As they take a ton of space, throw the Bob in underneath them, and this should be enough to finish off HSL and finally crack open this B point.
It did take them a while, though, so if you're HSL, you are quite happy with the hold you were able to just keep Young and Beautiful at bay for, and Vendetta's going to be coming in with this Sigma Flux. You don't necessarily need to get this contest going through, especially because you can actually see Young and Beautiful just guarding up in tunnels, making sure that no one does try for it. But you can supercharge off this next fight, right? You've got those bongos that ADM's going to have in Vendetta, that Sigma Flux. This is all of the stuff you need to just stop the momentum for Young and Beautiful. Take up that high ground and force this team away.
You'd better stop it now, because otherwise there's a bongo blade coming your way, and your kids is looking to give them the opening they need to reach the end of this map. Bongo first, blade up and over. How much can he get is the big question. Finds the first on a Bears, looking for a second. Yoda finishing some members off, but the gravitic flux is going to put a stop to things a little bit late, though, from HSL. Now you're down members. You're struggling to get a grasp of this cart, and that cart's going to continue to roll forward.
And HSL were in such a horrible position when that bongo blade comes through that they had to use the bongos themselves. They had to use the Sigma Flux, and now they're down those two ultimates to try and keep Young and Beautiful from getting this push all the way through with time on the bank to spare.
That time bank is terrifying. You want to stop it right now if you're HSL. Do not let this get any worse. Vendetta is going to do exactly that. Jonah falls, and they're getting way too greedy with this high ground right now. Sir Gibson is going to come through and take away a lot of those separated members' health bars. Now with 2 on the clock, but HSL have a spawn advantage.
And they've got the Bob advantage right now as well, because Young and Beautiful, they've lost Yona. They don't have that Ash, they don't have that ultimate. And now we can see, yep, Kage's going to send that right through, split all of Young and Beautiful away from that payload.
Young and Beautiful so unwilling to just lose a fight, but they have so much grit and so much clutch ability that they can do it however they want to. You kids with a 2-man blade to close things out. The cart rolls towards the end of the map, and with 2.5 minutes they are going to be more than happy with that push.
And HSL are going to be remembering how quickly Point A slipped through their fingers. And they are going to be squirming in their seats right now, though. All of the stuff that we saw on their defense, so Gibson going down that early on with that little blade charge, cannot happen again.
It needs to be a completely different look from what we've seen, because we have to remember how Young and Beautiful held on their defense. They came through, they spawn held for God knows what, 2 minutes? It was not a pretty sight to see. HSL, luckily enough, they clutched out at B and C, but it's getting there. That's been the hard part for them. It's been getting that ultimate advantage, because the second Young and Beautiful, they get one pick, they get one fight, they take the ultimate advantage, and then they take the game based solely off that, not to mention the fact that they fight tooth and nail in every single fight. Their idea of when to disengage is so perfect that they pull back, and like we mentioned, that Ashe in the previous fight, it wasn't there, but by the time that they re-engage, the spawn came in. They have such a good ability to come in and just take so long to lose a fight that they eventually turn it around.
And they back their opponents up into that really tough spot as well, because they're just holding on to ultimates. HSL, when that payload is so close, they were forced into expanding ultimates just to buy themselves a little bit of time. So when the blade came through, you'd already burned through your Bob. You didn't have that peel to try and keep his focus away from the rest of your team. But now if you're HSL, it's another round of Route 66. You've got another chance. This payload needs to go as far as it possibly can, at least through Point A. If you remember how fast Young and Beautiful were able to just blitz through the first part of this map.
Well, this is it. This is your life on the line. We know they're already out of the running, but they have got to find a little bit of pride. And if they want to do that, they need to win this first fight. You need to start coming away with an advantage now. Immortality field, though, used from both sides, and Young and Beautiful remains up, and so will their hold. Everybody else for HSL falls, and now it gets scary.
Oh, 20 seconds on the clock for HSL, and they are not near the ultimates that they need. During Young and Beautiful, they've got the immediate fight win card. Your kids is going to have this fight. Look at what Dance is doing. He's just hiding behind this tunnel, hoping that they can go for a sort of pincer movement when HSL come calling.
HSL are going to do exactly that, though. They're going to come calling over top. They can collapse onto Don. There's a really big opening for them to abuse, but that's if they don't die to your kids, who's looking to end things before they can even reach the card. Overtime takes down, and Young and Beautiful put a serious stop to HSL and their hopes.
And we talked about it. We said HSL needed to push that card at least through Point A if they wanted to stand any good chance of walking away with Route 66, of taking us to that third map. And the payload, it didn't even get to round that first corner. If you're HSL, it's not time for meta. Duh. It's not time to come in with a composition that takes a very long time to cycle through to one very specific win condition time that you just do not have on your side right now. It's time to come in with something that can just absolutely blitz through double shields. And it's time to come in with that stopping power that is the Mei.
That could be the real difference maker. We have seen in many a match the Mei swap. It may not just be the Genji difference, right? It could just be making space for your tanks, but this does so much, and it's a great opportunity. Kage on the Reaper is really interesting, though. Do you think it's going to work into Young and Beautiful's composition?
It means that you've got that 1 versus 1 capability, right? The Reaper, he's got that Ray form, he's got a little bit more survivability if he can go, especially if Bruce actually sticks on this Roadhog. And if you're Young and Beautiful, you do have time to experiment, to spice up your compositions to see what exactly HSL are running, and then go back to the drawing board and figure out what's best to deal with it. Because that Roadhog, that Orisa Hulk combo, is just not going to be enough right now, because Snappy's just going to be able to fade out of it, Paris is going to just speed boost out of it, so Gibson's going to put a third shield up in front of it, and Kage's just going to Ray form away.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that are going to be giving Young and Beautiful trouble, but that hot hook is not to be had. HSL set themselves up straight above spawn, and it's definitely the right move. Now you can collapse in a great wall. Cuts off 3, but Yona's still getting frags regardless. Barretts, what are you doing? You cannot 1v1 that guy. He's been killing you all night. You think he's not going to do it now? Young and Beautiful, they're going to take a leisurely stroll right on under this bridge and send themselves into a winning record.
HSL aggressed. When you're running the Mei, you don't want to aggress. The Mei is always that stopping power. She's always there with that CC, with that wall to separate out the team when they come into her territory. It's not her walking towards them, especially if you've got a McCree like Yona, who just comes and hits First his shot onto the Moira, which means you're down all of your main support, down all of the survivability, your front line is just going to absolutely crumble. And then he's able to just stay alive and calmly and leisurely line up the shots and allow his team to move on to that payload. If HSL had been able to hold just a little bit further back, if they'd been able to wall off anyone and just manage to delay the fight and delay the fight and delay the fight long enough to build up to that blizzard, they would have had a much better shot. They would have had the only shot at being able to keep Route 66 in their favor, but they aggressed far too quickly with a composition that was very much dive, but was very much a famine.
It was a tough match to watch. I'm gonna be honest. HSL, they tried so many things, and Young and Beautiful, no matter what they played, they just have such a strong idea of how to play this meta composition and any of the variants of it that you could really see them run any variation of the DPS, of the supports, of the tanks that they really want to. And they'll be feeling very, very comfortable. And honestly, that's what you want to see from a team that's trying to head off into Contenders. Young and Beautiful are making a serious statement right now in Trials. They're definitely a team to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I think if you're going up against Young and Beautiful in the future, you are going to be watching this and squirming because they are very strong. And honestly, we're not seeing a lack of cohesion, and when they fail in fights, it's not mistakes that they're making. It's that their opponents are able to just come out with ultimates and manage to get those picks in those slight little moments. Because Young and Beautiful, the front line's been playing perfectly. The DPS know when to get out, they're not being over-aggressive, they're not dying too quickly, they're still able to quietly build up ultimates, but it's during the team fight rather than the one-on-ones where you risk being taken out early, where you risk getting collapsed upon by the enemy team, the way we saw Sir Gibson go down time and time again on Route 66.
So we know what not to do, and we've had a good example of what to do. Now let's see if these next set of two teams can put that into action. The Ultimates are going up against Vasta in just a little bit, ladies and gentlemen, so keep your eyes on your screens and your butts in your seats. We'll be back with that shortly.